Hi guys, this is gsndon.com and I'm here with the Sony Xperia X Compact for a full review. We've already reviewed the Sony Xperia XZ, so now it's time for the smaller model that was unveiled at IFA 2016. It's one of the best and the highest spec sub 5-inch phones you can find out there, and probably the best of them Android wise. It's a solid iPhone SE rival, and it's basically the smaller version of the Sony Xperia X. On Amazon you can find it priced at $449, very compact, and Sony has a unique approach as usual with its compact models. It's a 4.6 incher that's available in blue, black or white, and it comes straight after the Sony Xperia Z5 Compact. It's its follow-up basically. Now as far as the design is concerned, this time the phone has no waterproofing and is pretty thick for a modern phone, and it feels like a small brick with rounded edges. It sits in an excellent fashion in your hand. I was shocked to see it's not slippery at all, although it's very glossy, and the facade and the back are fingerprint magnets. It measures 9.5mm in thickness, it weighs 135 grams, and as a comparison, the Xperia Z3 Compact measured 8.6mm in thickness and weighed 129 grams, so it's thicker and heavier than that one, while the Xperia Z5 Compact was also slimmer but a bit heavier than this one, so at least lighter than the predecessor. It's pretty thick for the current year, and it's got comfy one-hand usage, got a comfy power button, but the placement of the volume buttons not very inspired. Rounded edges, a very glossy case that's, in case you're wondering, it's made of polycarbonate, or better said plastic material. I know that Sony says it's inspired by ceramic, but it's not ceramic, believe me. A flat top, a flat bottom as well. A pretty nice design, but it's still made of plastic and quite thick. However, it's well built and it can pass the test of time and maybe even be remembered. It fits any pocket, any bag, and sadly the back will scratch easily. I am bummed by the fact it lacks waterproofing, and I cannot understand that. Probably would have made it even thicker. Now, on the display front, we're getting a 4.6 incher with a 720p resolution, an IPS LCD panel, and the usual array of technologies like X-Reality, Tri-Luminous, and we also have Gorilla Glass protection. The video player is actually pretty interesting because it has a ton of sub options. It integrates a TV guide showing you what's popular, also showing you what's on air, both the TV and on YouTube, and it divides stuff into TV series, documentaries, sports and all that. It kind of loads pretty hard, but in the end it's nice to have a TV guide in your video player. More options here, and we're here for a reason, to play our usual test video. So here we go. As usual, the player has a ton of options. Audio options, which we'll cover in the music department, video options, which we'll cover when time comes, and some subtitle options. Now the actual screen experience, as you can well see, that red is totally overblown, so it's a bright screen, also oversaturated, it's crisp and offers wide angles, and the contrast is not bad at all. The blacks are not deep, and if you're wondering about the pixels, let's have a look at them. We go here, and as usual we have a bunch of stuff, a bunch of tests. And this is the pixel arrangement under the microscope. It's RGB stripes pixel arrangement, and we did a brightness test, achieving a solid result of 533 lux units, which means we beat the Nexus 6P, HTC 10 and Huawei P9, but scored below the iPhone 6 or Xperia XZ. The screen has a ton of settings, as usual, to tweak those special options, and they include adaptive brightness, smart backlight and image enhance, like this, off, X-Reality for natural colors, and super vivid for even more saturated colors. There is white balance to tweak, there is a font size, cover selection here in case you have one of those special cool covers, and finally glove mode. So overall a very solid screen, but the colors need to be a bit calibrated because they're on the oversaturated side. The phone is powered by a pretty solid Qualcomm Snapdragon 650 processor. It's a hexa-core CPU with an Adreno 510 GPU, and we also get 3GB of RAM, 32GB of storage, a microSD card slot. The phone does not suffer from lag, but every once in a while it tends to start up apps pretty slowly, or better said slower than I like for a phone that's pretty well spec'd. However, games run like a charm. I've been playing with an Endless Runner and with Riptide GP Renegade, which is our usual benchmark game and has been for about 2 months now. You can tweak its graphics, sadly not as much as we did with the Riptide GP2, but still to a high level called Ultra, and that's where you see what the real abilities of the game are. So let's see what this game looks like on this phone, on this small phone, on this HD screen, and this small diagonal. Controls are pretty responsive, the water is well rendered, and by the way, the bezel doesn't feel exactly huge on this phone. On the Xperia XZ, somehow the bezel felt big. Well, on this phone, not. There doesn't seem to be any frame rate drop. The lighting is good, colors are nifty, controls are responsive, and the shadows are a-okay. Okay, so we're done with the gaming. We also did some benchmarks and the results were not bad. So we have to go to the screenshots and see what came out of the benchmark testing. So let's find it. Okay, so for example in Quadrant we were able to beat the HTC One M9, the flagship from last year, and the Lee Echo Lee Max 2 that has a Snapdragon processor, if I'm not mistaken the Snapdragon 820, so that's a performance. Now in Antutu, I mean Antutu 6 of course, let's see how we did. Boy, do we have a lot of screenshots here or what? Okay, so we're looking for Antutu in this sea of benchmarks. It's usually signaled by a white background and some... Here we go, finally. A pretty good score here as well. We surpassed the LG V10, which was a powerhouse last fall, and the Lumia 950 XL, which was a flagship, probably the last flagship from Microsoft. We also did the 3D Mark iStorm Unlimited test. Hopefully we'll find this one fast. Here we go, a very good score. We beat the Galaxy S5 but somehow scored below the Lenovo Vibe X3. In the end we also beat the Asus Zenfone 3 in Geekbench 4 in the single core test, and all the results were solid and quite impressive. Now when it comes to the temperature test, we achieved an almost high 40.6 degrees Celsius after running the game you saw before, and then we achieved 33.1 degrees Celsius after running the intensive GFX bench. So the performance is okay and temperature is just at the limit of heating. There is no overheating here. Now battery wise, this small powerhouse of a phone has a 2700 mAh battery, is the same capacity as the Xperia Z5 Compact, and it has adaptive charging. We also did a video playback test, HD video playback in a loop continuously, and achieved a very solid result, which is shown here. It's 11 hours and 22 minutes, it's excellent, and it's well worth the thickness of the phone. It beats the Galaxy S6 Edge Plus, Lenovo Vibe X3, it's only 8 minutes below the iPhone 6, and a few minutes below the Samsung Galaxy A3 2016. We also did the continuous usage test, PC Mark, 10 hours and 14 minutes, yet again excellent. It's a 7th placed phone all time from all our tests. It beats the Galaxy S7 Edge, Huawei Mate 8 and the Galaxy A5 2016. Only a few phones, usually battery phones, can beat it. The Sony Xperia X Compact is able to charge in 2 hours and 28 minutes, which is quite okay, and it surpasses the HTC One M8 or the iPhone 7 but scores below the iPhone SE charging wise. Of course, we have quite a few options to tweak the battery, including the famous stamina. So we have the stamina mode here, which can auto start or be always on. It restricts the functioning to save some more juice. And we have here battery time preferred, balance power saving or device performance preferred, so you can choose your option among those. Then the ultra stamina mode, which deactivates quite a few features like the Wi-Fi and mobile, but keeps these core options activated. Then there is battery care, which if you leave the phone to charge during the night, once it gets closer to 100%, it starts protecting the battery from overjuicing. It's one of the best small battery phones I've seen lately, possibly the best, below 5 inches. And now we proceed to acoustics. This phone has stereo speakers at the front, one in the earpiece and one here. We've seen that on the Sony Xperia XZ, and it worked pretty fine, although the volume was not impressive. We have flex support for the player. We didn't get headphones with the device. There's stereo recording and digital noise cancelling. As usual, the app has inherited all the ton of options that are related to the Walkman app and legacy. Okay, so let's see some of these many options. So settings, and we got audio settings, a bunch of them. DSEE, upgrading compressed music to high resolution, clear audio plus, some sound effects including an equalizer here with genres, with sliders, with clear bass, surround with a few options of its own, club, etc. and forced surround here, which is quite good, I have to admit. The surround was never a problem on Xperias. then dynamic normalizer and optimization for the microphone and your sets of headphones. Now let's actually listen to some tunes that we've got here and let's check them out. Okay, so just for the kick of it, we did a muffling simulation. As you can hear, the muffling is not very big on a flat surface. Conclusions: the back vibrates badly when listening to music, the sound is pretty loud and clear, got a solid bass, nice voice rendering and some distortion when you're listening to hardcore rock music. We also did a decibel meter test and let's see how that panned out. Okay, so here we go. Decibel meter. At the back of the phone, 79.2 decibels. At the front of the phone, 81.7 decibels. It's a reasonable result, but it does not break any records. At least we beat the Xiaomi Mi 5 and the Huawei Honor 5X, but scored below the Xperia Z5 and the iPhone SE. I also plugged in headphones to this model, Apple EarPods, and sadly they were not very loud. I've heard them louder on a Samsung phone, for example. We also have FM radio, which is on offer here if you plug in a pair of headphones. Here we go. Okay, so that's it. The acoustics are okay, could be a bit better volume wise. Now it's time to discuss the camera on the device. We're dealing here with a small phone with a big camera, 23 megapixel shooter that should be on paper the same as the one from the Xperia XZ. It has triple image sensing. It's a 23 megapixel shooter with laser focus, RGB IR, special sensor as well, LED flash, 24mm wide angle lens, Sony G lens, and also 1.1 micron pixels, as well as stabilization of the Steadyshot 5-axis kind. At the front we get an 8 megapixel shooter that's pretty solid for the selfies, and let's see what else. At the front we have a 5 megapixel shooter for the selfies with wide angle lens and f2.4 aperture. Now let's clean up the memory a bit, close everything, and let's see just how fast the camera app opens. Reasonably fast, I would have to say, and when it comes to focusing, at least touch focus, I'd say the speed is mid-level, nothing more than that, while the autofocus is decent at best. Now zooming is quite fluid, up to 8x, which is quite impressive on such a small phone, and picture taking is very slow, just like on the Sony Xperia XZ. And we have the usual array of options, the same one you saw on the Xperia Z5 and the Xperia XZ. We got the superior auto mode with a few settings here related to color and brightness, resolution, object tracking and so forth. Manual mode brings a ton of extra options. We got white balance, exposure, shutter, focus, metering, HDR, ISO and so on. Resolution 23 megapixels or 20 or 8 with various aspect ratios. Then comes the video. Full HD at 30 or 60 frames per second. There is no 4K vid here, keep that in mind, and the camera apps, which you're probably familiar with, related to augmented reality and so forth. Now, if you go to the gallery, you get to the area of pictures we've taken using the phone. This phone, we have 199 items and we're not afraid to use them. I'm going to start off with the daytime shots. As you can well see, we have a lot of them. And we start with those ones, poetic ones, from the edge of a lake. Okay, so it was a pretty sunny day of October. We have some crisp shots with well calibrated colors and solid details in landscape shots and close-ups. You can zoom into these landscape pictures all you want and you will not be disappointed by the colors or the clarity. Basically the same camera we had on the Xperia XZ. We got some solid close-ups here with good color calibration. There is no oversaturation and the exposure, focus and white balance were spot on. There is no blur, and we also did a bunch of selfies with a very solid face texture. This is one of the best selfie phones I've seen, and it doesn't skimp on the background either, so the background is pretty clear as well. Okay, enough with the selfies, time to check out more shots with colorful toys, everything well captured and well calibrated. We also had a bit of focus play. Apparently the gallery app, the album app, is lagging a bit, so keep that in mind. I mentioned the performance before. I mentioned the focus, so we play with the focus in this area on close-up and on the background. We alternated between them with pretty good results, which you'll also see in a gallery in the full text review. Sadly, the panorama was rather modest with a resolution of 4912 over 1080 pixels. It was clear and had good colors, but modest resolution. Okay, we also have a close-up here, a perfect one of a leaf. It's autumn and all, and here we go. This is it, excellently captured. The lighting was perfect, sunset, and yet another close-up of a leaf. Everything works out fine. We also did an HDR, so we got this regular shot and then the HDR shot, which feels just a bit washed out. In general, I felt that the dynamic range was good here. Just have a look at one of these shots, this one here. Many phones would have made this area totally white because there's sun here and there's shade here, but this phone does not have this problem. In the end, it feels even better than the Asus Zenfone 3, for example, and most Huawei phones, which is no small feat. In the shadow, like here, things get perfect color-wise and clarity-wise. I'm very happy with the results, and I feel that some of these pictures even surpass the iPhone 7 or are on par with it. I feel that this phone is a best buy when it comes to the camera for a sub 5-inch device. Okay, so we're done with the daytime shots. These are the nighttime shots, and we have quite a few of them. So we do have big halos for street lights, but the clarity was okay in general. We also had pretty nice texture of monuments. We also caught a concert on camera. When the camera meets yellow lights, things aren't that good. The images are a bit blurred and yellowish, some blue hues around the image, but when it's time for a concert without yellow lights, everything is perfect, clarity, zooming quality, texture, etc. and results were pretty solid. But once again, if you start going to areas like this with monuments, you'll see a blue hue at the top and bottom of the image, and here you can see the flash in action, regular shot with a flash, and it's an excellent flash, by the way. I would have to say it's below what the OnePlus 3 can achieve, and also below the iPhone 7, but it feels above what the Sony Xperia Z5 Premium, for example, offered us last year. Now, as far as the videos are concerned, we filmed in Full HD MP4 format, 30 frames per second and 17 megapixel bitrate. We also had pretty solid stabilization, and we only filmed in 30 or 60 frames per second. There's no 4K video here, just in case you were wondering, and we started with a stabilization test. This is it, we're descending a flight of stairs. It's excellent stabilization, there is no jerking motion. It's basically just like the Xperia XZ stabilization via Steadyshot technology. And this video also recorded some problems with the microphone as far as the wind is concerned. We got crisp image and okay colors, some focus loss here and there, but in the end stabilization is quite smooth. Okay, so that was video number 1. Here's video number 2. The clouds feel a bit unrealistic, and also some of the trees feel a bit burnt, but the water texture is excellent, the image is quite crisp, and in spite of the wind, the microphone seems to be handling itself a bit better. Okay, we proceed to yet another video. We have one that tests the zoom. This is it. We filmed a bunch of ducks. We zoomed in and noticed some pretty solid detail loss, but in the end, okay clarity, pretty solid tree texture. And when you're activating the other type of stabilization, the standard one, not intelligent one, you see that everything gets a bit shakier. My biggest objection here would be the unrealistic colors we met with in the case of the trees and the sky sometimes. It's an okay capture, but I've seen better. It's not flagship level, certainly. Okay, so let's turn this down so there will be no copyright problem. This is the cinematic 60 frames per second video. Looks quite swell, and the microphone actually captured the song pretty well, so there's no problem in that area. I would call this about 10% below the Xperia XZ, although the two cameras are pretty much the same. And it's also below the iPhone 7. Now, when it comes to nighttime capture, we also have some concert videos, but I'm going to start with a standard one, a non-concert one, this one here. As you can see, the usual yellow light plays tricks on the camera. We got big street light halos and some bluish hues around the edges of the image. In spite of that, the clarity is quite okay, and when faced with a concert, the camera acted admirably. For example, we got this video here. The microphone was excellent, object tracking was good, clarity was nice, and everything was well caught. Even the zoom in didn't drop too many details, so that's solid. It remains a good phone for filming during concerts, especially thanks to the microphone and clarity of the image, but if you're facing it with a yellow light, you can forget about filming. Okay, so overall, just in case you're wondering, I also filmed with the Galaxy S7 Edge during a concert, and this is only a bit below that model, about 10% below the S7 Edge. When it comes to the web browsing, we got Chrome in action here, and let's load up gsmdown.com. Reasonably fast, I have to say, and the benchmarks confirm it. SunSpider actually had a very good result, almost as good as the one offered by the Microsoft Edge browser. The input is done via SwiftKey. We got this swiping around here, and let's write hello. Easy said and done, and the button spacing is quite well, so the browser and input check out. Now on the connectivity front, we're dealing here with a phone that has an interesting approach to the SIM insertion. You don't have to use a metal key, you simply have to pull from here and you'll access the tray, a nifty innovation from Sony. We got the usual array of options. We got a single SIM setup with a nano SIM card slot, LTE category 6. There's GPS, GLONASS, Miracast, DLNA, there's NFC, Bluetooth 4.2 and Wi-Fi, A, B, G and AC, plus the USB Type-C port at the bottom. Now when it comes to the calls, you'll be happy to know that we got smart call handling, also a loud and clear experience, okay signal and good microphone. We actually have two noise cancelling microphones. And we also did a speed test, and let's see how that was handled. Okay, so all the speed test values are here. We achieved up to 269 megapixel in download via Wi-Fi, quite impressive, 25 megapixel in upload, while the LTE test brought us to 55 megapixel in download, 45 in upload. Solid, but I've seen better when it comes to 4G, but once again, excellent Wi-Fi result. Now, if you're talking about the software, this model runs the Android 6.0.1 Marshmallow with a typical Xperia UI applied on top of it. It's flat and colorful, and it has a lot of side menus in apps like album, music or video. So if you saw our recent review of the Sony Xperia XZ, we got the exact same software experience, and for multitasking we got the typical carousel and swiping to close apps. The leftmost panel belongs to the Google and Google Now action with its usual options and cards. If we swipe down, we get a search of applications and stuff including from the web. And if you keep the home screen pressed, you'll get the widgets, very good looking, and those good looking ones come from the pre-installed apps from Sony. We got wallpapers, reminding me of the wallpapers from a PlayStation. We got the themes, a lot of downloadable ones and customizable ones, looking hot. And finally settings. I was surprised to see that there are many settings here related to auto rotation, icon size, appearance, effects, transitions, Google Now and so forth, so quite impressive when it comes to the home screen. Now if you swipe down, this is the drop down area. It includes the notifications and of course the quick settings, typical for a Marshmallow device, no problem here. If you go to the settings area, nothing fancy, connectivity, themes and wallpaper, multimedia and stuff, lock screen and security, encryption, account, and finally we get to play with the fingerprint scanner embedded in the power button. So let's start playing with it. Lock screen and security, fingerprint manager, continue, set up screen lock, pin, the typical setup process. Okie dokie, and now the setup is starting, and it requires a 20-step registration of the print. You just have to put your finger on the power button. It's a power button, not a home button, keep that in mind. It's on the side and it can be used to authenticate. Okay, so let's unlock the device. Here we go. The first time you require the pin, but then everything works with no problem. You can even start up the screen like this and then just put your hand here, your finger, and there will be no problem. Once again, changing angles, no problem. And once again, the final test. Come on. Nope. Interesting. Apparently I have to try again later or enter the pin. It was interesting to see that from that angle it did not recognize it, so let's try again because that's rather odd. go, it worked this time. So in the end it's quite fast, accurate, and there is no problem here. We also have encryption. And when it comes to the pre-installed apps list, I counted 47 apps. So yes, once again for an Xperia phone we're dealing with bloatware. 47 apps include Amazon Shopping, there's the antivirus AVG, you can edit movies on the go with Movie Creator and create small clips, LifeLog, which monitors the hours you sleep, the hours you do gaming, the hours you cycle, and so forth. And let's see what else. PlayStation, there's PlayStation Remote here, you can connect to your PS4 and remotely play stuff and control it. There's Spotify and SwiftKey, to name just a few. Okay, so that's the end of the review of the Sony Xperia X Compact, one of the very few sub 5-inch phones we've tested lately. So on the pro side, we get excellent stabilization from the camera. I also get the advantage that this phone fits perfectly in any pocket or purse you can imagine. We have a bright screen, as you can well see here, and aside from that we got good performance, a solid battery, actually a bit above my expectations. We got stereo acoustics, solid pictures, when it comes to details especially, pretty good selfies, sometimes very good, good concert recording, excellent microphone, and fast Wi-Fi. Now on the cons side, we got the bloatware, the back is easy to scratch, and it's a fingerprint magnet. The screen is a bit on the oversaturated side, the phone speakers could be louder, and there's that blue hue during the pictures taken during the night and also the videos. And finally, volume button is not comfy, and the phone somehow is not waterproof, which was a bit of a shocker for me. This remains one of the best sub 5-inch phones in diagonal, with the most potent camera, that's for sure. Most potent camera of the segment below 5 inches. It's comfy, has a great battery. It's basically a concert phone, a phone for a journalist, with solid performance, reasonably future-proof if Android Nougat comes before the year is out. And with performance like this, you won't have a problem the next, let's say, 2 or 3 years. It's also nice for the music buff, because it has a lot of tweaks to perform to the equalizer. In the end, the Xperia X Compact lives up to its name, delivers solid battery, camera, and audio experience with those tweaks. This is it from gsm.com. Bye bye.